53? I don't know if it's 40. I think it's 53. It's definitely 53. I misnumbered this. I misspoke on the one earlier today. I said 43 at 42. It's 53. So anyway, welcome to Tint Wizdom number 53. I'm joined now with Harry Rahman from Veloce Innovations. Thank you, Harry, for joining.
You bet, Eric. Looking forward to it.
So the idea for today's Tint Wizdom is, one of the topics that we spoke about on the Tint Wizdom earlier today, the town hall meeting we had, was, it was kind of said, Chris Robinson said it, but I would say it was a general consensus about everybody is, it's a very, very difficult time right now for obvious reasons, but what you need to do is obviously have a plan for the short term, have a plan for the midterm, have a plan for the long term. It's not going to be an exact science of a plan. It's going to be the best you can predict and the best you can put in place right now. And it's going to be something that you probably revise and evolves on a daily basis or even throughout the day. So don't feel like it's not your 10 commandments or your future. It's just getting some sort of idea, putting your thoughts together. And then the other thing is actually using this time to do what you can to best benefit your business coming out of this time. So anything you can do to improve your marketing, to improve your systems, to improve your operations, that's what you want to do. So the idea behind today's Tint Wizdom is we're going to talk about some features on Tint Wiz, some of the most valuable Tint Wiz features, some new features that were added, and part of why I'm really excited to have Harry here, and I appreciate Harry you doing this, is we're going to kind of switch the roles here and kind of give Harry the control of the conversation to ask me questions and questions that he sees are valuable for the industry, questions that he may have just authentically for him, and then of course we'll ask any questions that get brought up in the live stream. So use the comments. Now, we are going to be talking about specific features inside Tint Wiz. So this would be a good time if it's possible for you, if you're on the computer, to pull up tintwiz.com, log into your account, or if you don't have an account, you can actually sign up for an account. It takes your email and your name, so you'll be in there before I'm done talking. And then when we're discussing these features, I'm going to do it in such a way that I think you'll be able to very easily follow along and test those features out, maybe have questions of your own, and because at the end of the day, if you're looking for things to do for your business, learning Tint Wiz, whether you decide to use it immediately or not, but learning it, knowing the features that are there, knowing its capabilities, and knowing how your business can interact with them is going to be valuable to your business and to you. So if you're looking for things to do, this is one of them. That's why we're doing this live stream. And I'm just going to give everybody a second or two to download Tint Wiz. If you're on your iPhone or iPad, you'll download it from the App Store. If you're on a desktop device or even from your phone, you can also just go to tintwiz.com and log in. Now, real quick, while everybody's getting set up, Harry, I wanted to bring up something that you brought up on the Tint Wizdom we did earlier today, which was the best thing ever, the Tint Wizdom as a whole. And something you brought up, which I think was huge, was somebody had commented, I forgot if it was during the stream or in the comments, but basically they commented how, I think it was Chris Robinson, he was saying how, he foresees him getting through this crisis, but he's worried that when he comes out of this crisis and he's faced with a larger project or a situation where he's going to need to put up a lot of his money in film, that, those reserves have now gone to holding him over through this rough period. Now you said, hey, Chris, give me a call when that happens, and I'll be sure to figure it out for you. I kind of want to expand on that because I feel like it was said as a joke, but you mean it 100%, and I kind of want to throw out there, like, number one, so what you meant by that, what you foresee maybe being something Veloce will be doing, as well as kind of recapping the things you've already put in place for dealers to make it a little easier for them. I know like one of them you mentioned was doing more like exact cuts on film so that they can order only what they need for the job, not have extra money tied up in inventory. So let's talk about that while everybody gets set up with Tint Wiz. And then of course, any questions anyone has on this or on anything, drop them in the comments. They'll get asked and answered.
Good. So Eric, first of all, I just want everybody to know that I had actually approached Eric about this episode because Eric's done a great job of helping other companies and, bringing other companies to the forefront. And he's very selfless in the fact that, he doesn't really talk a lot about Tint Wiz, which is his baby. So the purpose of it was not just to put Eric on the other side of the fence, but the real purpose of it was that I brought this up earlier, and by the way, my Super Thursday video this week is going to talk about the top 5 things that you should be doing, and one of them happens to be some of the things. So my wife said to me, as a joke, she said, hey, throughout the years or she's always said, hey, listen, when you have time, can we get this done? And I would always put it off to, yeah, when we have time, we'll get it done. So now that we have time, we have to get it done. So same thing in business. I've heard a lot of people say with Tint Wiz, they're like, well, right now it's just me and get ready. I don't have time to learn this Tint Wiz program and the benefits of it. I'm just going to keep moving. So that's why I initiated that. So going back to your question about what Veloce is doing, look, we've been very fortunate, Eric. Our customers have put us so far ahead of where we needed to be that it has given us a chance. So it's not that we're far ahead, it's our customers have done so much for us over the last year that it has put us way ahead. So some of the things that we wanted to do to give back was, number one was, we said instead of buying 25 linear foot rolls, you can buy 10 linear foot rolls. We don't want our dealers to stock up on inventory. If you can afford to stock up, do stock up. If you can't, so the 25 foot, especially with Veloce, with some of our more expensive and higher end films, if you have to buy another 25 feet, it puts a lot of money on the shelf. And we don't, in this uncertainty, we want you to maximize your cash flow instead of focus in on putting inventory on your shelf. So that's the first thing. The second thing we did was we said, look, in the United States, over $150 order, we're going to do ground shipping free of charge, right? So that was another thing we wanted to do because we know margins are tight. The third thing we did was we actually lowered our margins significantly. And we said, look, margins significantly out as well. So not only can you get a discounted rate, not only can you buy what you need in 10 linear foot rolls, and not only but along with the fact that you can get shipping. So we did a few things that honestly, we didn't do it because we're great. We did it because we need to thank the people that got us there. That's right. The reason. This is a way of saying thank you, not a way of asking for more. So if you don't need film, don't take it. On the comment of the large commercial projects or things of that, where window film companies and their reserves may be depleted, you bet we are in very healthy form. Whether it takes 3 months or 6 months, our dealers have put us at a place where we can really afford to give back. So if you need, on large commercial projects, you need help, 50,000, 100,000 square foot projects as we come out of this, let me tell you, our economy was strong. We're going to come back really strong. If this goes on longer, it may take a little bit longer to come back, but we are going to be and have been the greatest nation. And we'll come back, and we'll come back even stronger, and everything will be fine. So yes, I said it as a joke, but I meant it, that our dealers have just put us in a great position. So to all of you that have contributed to us, we are going to give back and some. Thank you.
Yeah, and just a reminder, like everybody's in this together. So just as the dealers are struggling, so are the manufacturers, obviously, and everybody's, what I'm saying is everybody's going to be open to working with each other. So just hopefully it alleviates some of that stress and knowing.
And just a reminder that again, you don't like patting yourself on the back, but and I'm not saying this to pat him on the back. I'm saying this because it is in today's world. Everybody's trying to make a living. We all have bills to pay, and Tint Wiz actually took the step for 90. Is it 90 days, Eric?
Yeah. So 60. So we're doing whether you have whether you're a paying user, whether you're on a trial, whether your trial expired, we basically opened up Tint Wiz for everybody to use. At the moment, we set a date of June 15th, which was 90 days in total. But obviously, that date may get extended. It's something that, sure. The longer this mess goes on, obviously, that's what we're going to be doing.
So I just want you to understand one thing, that if you have not tried Tint Wiz because of cost, that excuse is gone. If you've not tried Tint Wiz because you didn't have time, that excuse is gone, right? So
Yep.
if you've not tried it because there is a learning barrier, well, we're going to talk about some of the support mechanisms that are there to help you think. Look, I've got a few of our dealers that use it, and we're going to talk about that. So Eric, you've run a business. So I want to clarify. I just want to touch on one other point that maybe I didn't go deeper into. If you don't have an account, if you've never had an account, Eric, they can still get an account till June 15th free of charge.
Yeah, no matter who you are, if you just go to
So
TintWiz, whether you log into your old account or
I
a
just
new
want to
account,
say,
it's free.
it's not for paid users. It's not for people. What Eric is saying is that if you've never had a Tint Wiz account, right, and if you want to try it and get off of it till June 15th, you can sign up and get that at no cost. He's not discounting it. He's taking all the cost away. So I just want to remember. So Eric, you've run a business, you've run a retail business, and as I look at Tint Wiz, I think about, okay, well, it's great, it can help me, but I'm a little slow to adapt in terms of technology. So
Sure.
if I am a small business owner, my first question to you is, okay, first of all, before I even ask that, tell me a little bit about why you built Tint Wiz and who you built it for.
So Tint Wiz was built for my own company at the time, and we built it specifically because as we started the company and we're growing quickly, we immediately wanted to be more organized, just more organized than a pen and paper. So we started off by using Google spreadsheets to track anybody who called in, and then we would highlight different colors depending on the status, if they were somebody we quoted, if it was somebody we sold, and somebody who was paid. So we had this color-coded Google Doc that we thought was super organized. And then we had Apple calendars, and that was so everybody could share a calendar and we could schedule everybody on Apple Calendar. Both were free and were great solutions. And then of course we used email because we had to send pictures back and forth. So we would send job details to our installers through email, save us pen and paper, and then they would reply to the email when the job was done with pictures. So we had the pictures in the email, and that definitely was super organized for us. And then we outgrew it in a matter of months. And one of the first things that was a problem was scheduling, because we were operating in Los Angeles and San Diego, Southern California. So it's a very dense area. There's a lot of traffic, and going 2 or 3 miles can take 15, 20, 30 minutes, an hour sometimes. So getting efficiently scheduling people together is one way to get more out of a person. So in a person's day, they can go on 4 consultations if they're spread out, or they could go on 8 or 9 consultations if they're close together. Now, it wasn't that we're trying to milk the person per se. It's that we're trying to give the person the most efficient job that they can have, because the more consultations they can do in a day, the more money they can make in a day, and the less gas you spend, and so on. There's just so much efficiency to scheduling. So and then also when customers would call in, when we were searching a Google Doc, sometimes with customers that had used us multiple times at that point, searching a Google Doc and finding the details of the jobs just became a little nutty. So a CRM was the way to go. I looked into what options were out there. There's certainly a lot of CRMs out there, just non-industry related.
Hold that thought. A CRM.
So CRM's a place
Go ahead.
Customer relationship management, or a couple variations of the term, but basically the idea is it's somewhere you're going to keep everything to do with your customer in one place, so that you can, for the most part. Well, because
why would I? If I'm a small business, I know Mrs. Jones's house, and I know the answers, but I want you to think, because look, here's the deal. You're talking about keeping pictures. You're talking about this. The small business, the one-man show or the two-man show is thinking, well, I don't really need to. I know where that house is. I know what that picture looks like. I know Mrs. Jones. And if she thinks of something, she's probably going to recommend me to somebody else. So I want you guys out there in the field, if you're especially a smaller business, I want you to think about this. It's always the chicken or the egg. Do I start using this software first, and become more efficient, or do I wait for the time where my business grows? So
Right.
there is no right or wrong answer, but I will tell you this. If you become more efficient, if you start using this whether it's this software or any software, if you start using it, you will have more time to do the things to grow your business.
Of course.
If you're running yourself wild, you'll never have the time. So there is, as a small business owner, don't think about, well, I'm not there yet. Well, Eric got to a point. No, Eric got in a lot of pain before he decided that I can't handle this. I'm not very efficient. So make yourself efficient. It will free up your time to grow.
So, you really touched on a good point there is like, when to jump on in a system like that. When do you need a system like that? And, I can promise everyone 1000% it's easier to do it earlier than later, because later you face challenges if you have more to do, but you've also developed habits. And some of those habits are good habits, some of them are bad habits, some of them maybe they're not good or bad, they're just habits. And then, adapting to a new way just becomes a little more difficult than just doing it when you have all the time and you haven't set those habits in place, or just at least you have more time in your hands. And like now's obviously a time you want to make the most of it. So, from the efficiency of scheduling, it just became important to, maximize everybody's ability to help with a job. So whether whether the consultant was in the field, whether it was an installer, whether it was somebody in the office answering phones, whether it was a consultant to the graphics guy, it allows everybody to have access to all the information in one place. So you eliminate forgetting things, you eliminate mistakes, you eliminate the inefficiencies of having to communicate with people, missing those people, getting back to those people, and so on. Basically, the smoother everything goes, throughout the pipeline of your business, the smoother everything goes. That just means an easier business, and you can grow faster, and so on. And that's really what it was all about. Was if whether you're a one-man band and it's the difference between you hiring somebody or you not hiring somebody, you can get more accomplished by integrating something like Tint Wiz into your business than you will necessarily by hiring somebody. It also puts you in a more, like, a safer place and a more profitable place. So you're able to save multiple people that you'd normally add to your business by just being more efficient by yourself. And, obviously as you add people, one person using Tint Wiz can do more than 10 people using pen and paper. It's not really even a guess.
I get it. Obviously I see the benefits, but the question is this. So let me give you an example.
Sure.
When I go running, right? My goal was to do a 5K every day, 3 miles every day, right? Okay. So I got to that point, I did it, and then now I've backed off a little bit, just work and this and that. So I try to do it like 2 to 3 times a week. But the reasons I'm bringing this up is one of the biggest things is that when I go home and I'm really tired and I've had a long day, I'm looking for all sorts of excuses on why not to run.
Sure.
But let me tell you something. So I convince myself. I say, okay, look, just get out. Instead of doing 3 miles today, let's just do half a mile, right? And that's my way. Once I put on my shoes and get outside, Eric, I get my 3 miles done. So the point I'm trying to make is, what's that step, Eric, that somebody's sitting at home saying, well, I don't need it. It's just so much to learn. What's that step? For me, it is putting on my shoes and just walking outside. What's that one step that you can say what's the one simplest thing that they can take advantage of with Tint Wiz that'll get them on? They don't have to start using every service it has. They're just 1 or 2 things that you can say, just do these 2 things and it'll be worth your while.
Yeah, so the first thing is just that contact button. So when you log in, the first thing you're going to see is a big green add contact button. And adding your first contact is going to be the beginning of your future. That's all you got to do. So you hit add contact, you're going to see a form pop up. It's going to be a very, very familiar form, just like you've used on your phone before. It's going to ask for the name, the phone, the address, and so on. Now, you don't need to fill in everything. You fill in only what you have. So if you're entering an automotive client, maybe you just know their name and phone number as far as contacts. If it's a flat glass, you're probably going to have their address. If you know their zip, add it. Add their email if you know it. So you always need to keep in mind with Tint Wiz, the more you add, the better. But you don't have to add everything. Add what you have and what feels comfortable to you. Once you save that contact in there, you can go ahead and create a project for them. And that's really it. and keeping track of your projects, using it as a scheduler. So basically add your customers in there, use it as a scheduler, and of course you can include notes, you can start to attach pictures, before and after pictures, and so on. What you're going to just simply build yourself is you're going to have every one of your customers, they're all going to be in one place. You're going to have all your pictures saved. You're going to have all your notes saved. You're going to know what film you used, whatever information you choose to save in there, you're going to have, and you're going to have a very clean schedule. And you're going to be able to see where your jobs are. And if it's just you, that's it.
Yeah. So I want to jump in, and there are a couple of things that Eric said that make it really simple. Number one is, look, I hear people saying, look, I'm 65 years old and I've been trying to sell my business and I can't get a lot of money for it, right? So there are two reasons you can't get a lot of money for it. There are more than two, but I'm going to touch on two that you can solve, right? Number one is you are your business, right? So you don't have as many systems and everything is in your head. So when somebody like me is looking at, or an investor is looking at buying your retail business, they're saying, shoot, man, this guy has so much stuff in his head. I don't really, I'm buying him. And if something happens to him, then guess what? My business is gone. So that's the one thing that you can slowly integrate your systems in Tint Wiz. The second thing is data. Look, a company that's not collecting data today in 3 years is not going to. You're going to have to work your 3 times as hard to get your business, your referral sources. Everything is going to be so difficult. So if you're not thinking about today, I want you to think about 5, 10 years, 15 years down the line if you ever want to sell your business. Now, for me, you touched on a couple of things that as a sales guy and stuff that jump out at me, which is, okay, I go into a house and we often hear people say, Eric, have you done, any other houses in this neighborhood?
Sure.
Or can you show me some pictures of similar houses? And you can pull it up, and you can, and correct me if I'm wrong, you can pull up, in that zip code, if you've done any jobs, you can pull it up by the particular product. So if you're selling Veloce Clear 70, you can type in, hey, Veloce Clear 70 in this zip code, and they can pull that up and you can show them. And now Mrs. Jones is thinking, look, Mrs. Jones wants to buy what Mrs. Smith bought. Remember that? So,
yep.
or she wants to feel comfortable that somebody else has made that purchase. So now you can pull that up instead of looking through all of your images and pictures on your iPhone or Android or whatever to find that one project which may not be labeled. You can pull it up and you can say, oh, yes, look, we did a house. You don't have to share all the details, but we did a house which is about 2 miles from here. And we did Veloce Clear 70. We did about 250 square feet. By the way, here's some pictures of this, some before and after. Obviously, don't show any confidential information like the addresses and stuff or necessarily the names. But now she's feeling like, okay, so that's just that one feature, right, can really help you. Sorry, Eric, keep going.
Yeah, no, what you just said about showing it might be something where you're like, something I hear people say is, oh, I sell most of my jobs anyway. Well, most isn't all of them. So unless you're selling 100% of your jobs, the next question is, I sell most of my jobs. Okay, but how much are you selling them for? Are you able to demand a premium? Because when you start to provide a premium service, you're starting to set yourself apart. So, if they ask you for pictures of a job and you say, well, I do a lot of jobs in the area, but I don't have any pictures on me, or you go out and say, hey, to every one of your consults, hey, I can show you some pictures of houses we did in the neighborhood, you're either playing with everybody else or you're setting yourself apart. And increasing your closing percentage, setting yourself apart, being able to, earn that customer's trust, it's a game changer. And it's the difference between winning and not winning. That's what it is. It's all these little things people do, and they help set themselves apart.
And one additional thing, if you're going to build a plan, I don't want you to think about today. Yes, maybe today you don't need them because you can remember them and they're all on your iPhone. If you want to expand someday, right? If you want to get a second person, you want them. They're not going to have access to all of your iPhone pictures or Android pictures, hopefully. Hopefully not. But so what you want to do is you want to equip them. So this is not about you. If you are in business and you're going to be a one-person show for the rest of your life, more power to you. right? But if you're not going to be, and if you want to grow this business, then you have to build it up. Somebody told me a long time ago, and it was one of some a really learning experience for me. They said, do something not like you have to do it, but you're going to teach somebody to do it. Do it like as if there's going to be somebody else that's going to be doing it instead of you. So I want you to think about, too often we get so, and this is a good time to take a step back, right? When business was blowing and going, right, we didn't have the time to do all of this, but right now we do. Is that it's not about you. If the economy comes back strong, and we're blowing and going, you're going to need more help and you're going to need more systems. So whatever you do, think about the next person doing it, not you. I want to touch on, so that's one of the quickest thing. Give me one more thing that is equivalent to me putting on my shoes and walking outside. What's that barrier? What's one other thing they can use that they can get instant ROI on?
It's hard to pick, but I'll tell you two, and I'll just tell you two shorter instead of one.
Yeah.
Number one, setting up your lead forms. Lead forms are basically, think of them like, you have a contact form on your website. So through Tint Wiz, you can go to the lead forms in this, in the menu, it's going to say lead forms, and you can create a contact form. So you can take that contact form and you can actually replace the one on your website with a Tint Wiz contact form. You can change the style however you want, change the fields, the questions, however you want. It's a form and you can customize it right then and there. It's very easy. And what that does then is, forever, if somebody submits their information on your website, it goes straight into your Tint Wiz account. All the information saved, it's time-stamped. You get an email alert and you get an app notification that you have a new lead. So you can then click that app notification or the link in the email, click their phone number or their email, and you can be texting, calling, or emailing them within seconds of the lead coming through, as opposed to needing to check your email, copy and pasting that email or that phone number into your phone or into your email or whatnot, and then not beyond the difference in the response time, it's when you talk to that person, what happens then? If you were just calling them from your phone and the information was in your email, how do you save what happened? How do you know what happened to that phone call? Like whether you left a voicemail and you want to follow up again, whether you quoted them and they said they'll think about it and you want to follow up, whether you scheduled them and you want to tally that as a sale, like how does that all work? And with Tint Wiz, it's simple because you can just type in, whatever it was, getting a quote.
Hold the second part, because I know you had two things. I want to touch on this. Look, guys, window tinting is, people have a lot of options, right? So timing is so important. Your customers have a lot of other dealers they could call. So timing is so important. If you're the first one or if you're the second one and you answer it professionally, they're going to realize that you've set the bar. So that is so important because right now it is cumbersome. If you get that lead and then you can cut and paste it and then you get it, or if you don't even cut and paste it, let's say you decide, I get a lead right now and I decide I'm going to call the customer right up. I don't have all my notes on it, right? Mm-hmm. So guess what's happened? I didn't take the notes. Now I have to not only copy and paste the information, but I have to copy and paste the notes. So that being said, if that is able to plug in and go right to your Tint Wiz account, you can text them right away. You can send them. You can start sending them pictures. You can start a conversation. And you can do a lot of different things.
Whether you're, like we say, the term one-man band, whether you're by yourself basically, or you have a staff. If you're by yourself, like you want to be able to handle those calls as quickly and as efficiently as possible because you have everything else to do since you're a one-man band. So that amount of time it takes you and the cleanliness of everything happening for you, those extra minutes do add up. And they're the only minutes you have in your life, so minimizing them are important as long as it's going to lead to the best outcome. And if you do have a staff and you have somebody else answering the phone, this is a way to hold them accountable for every single phone call that comes in and every lead that comes in. So you can see how quickly they responded. You can see how many calls you got and the information on all of them. Like, if not, you don't know what's going on. So if they're, if a customer is calling and being a little difficult and saying like, well, what's the difference between so-and-so? And they're just kind of like, well, whatever you want. on, they hang up the phone, they kind of move on with their day. If that's not required for them to track it anywhere, they're more likely to kind of not really care what happens. But when you know something's being counted, you want to, show a good number, and you want that number to improve over time. When it's not counted, perception can be very deceiving. And typically, if there's no reason for somebody to do a great job, and there's no systems in place to measure they're doing a great job, you're just increasing the chances of you having somebody who's not going to do a great job. So it really is, go ahead, valuable on both ends.
I want to tie one other point that from earlier. This is really cool. So not only do you get the information into your database and onto your Tint Wiz app, but now guess what you can do? If that person says, well, I have a white 2018 Chevy Camaro, guess what you can do? You can look up your database of Camaros that you have done to see if you have done a white one, and you can email them or you can text them. So again, the information that you put in, you can now use as soon as that comes in. So now they're like, okay, well, this guy's done Camaros. It's not the first Camaro he's doing. And wow, I can actually see what a white Camaro looks like in this particular product. And guess what? If that was a higher end product, they'll now be more likely to even look at that saying, hey, my Camaro brethren bought this higher end film instead of the lower end film. So I wanted to tie those things together. It's that these pieces, they may be independent. We're talking about them independently because different people will pick up different pieces, but they're actually all joined at the hip on using them. So it's a combination of not just getting back fast, but a combination of getting them the pictures that you had stored the last time a Camaro came in and getting it to them right away. What was the other thing that you wanted to touch on?
Well, okay, so the other feature that's just a game changer that I feel like you can use it completely on its own if you wanted to, is the new inventory system. So we launched an inventory management system about the beginning of last week, or maybe it was the week before, about 10 days ago or so. And it is there to manage automotive, residential, commercial, or marine. And it has basically, there's nothing out there that I think is even a remotely like reasonable inventory system to use. Inventory is very tricky to keep track of, and I know in my previous business, like inventory was a big thing for us because if you are able to know that one installer has a certain film, or you have the certain film, on the shelves, it could save you from ordering another roll of that film. It could also save you from running out of film at a job. So whether you have the film, you have double the film, or you don't have enough of the film, those are all freaking problems potentially, because there's a difference in your business if you have $10,000 worth of film on the shelves, which can add up very quickly, 10 or 15,000, or whether as you grow that balloons to 80 or $100,000 worth of film. Because what happens is as you end up with more film on the shelves, it becomes more and more confusing to use that film on the shelves, which leads to more and more film on the shelves. So anyway, inventory system is something that I think, even if you're just going to use it for inventory, it's worth checking out. It's very simple to use. It's precise, and we're super, super proud of it. And I know it's going to be just game changing.
I want to connect that in today's world. Look, in today's world, why is it even more important today than before? Because look, I don't know what the mandates are. You're sitting in LA and there is a lockdown, right? In LA, right? Mm-hmm. So
it's a stay inside shelter.
Yep. So the stay inside shelter is expanding. I heard Austin just got it. Houston's getting it, and other places are getting it. So for those people of you that have not gotten it, or even as we come out of this shelter, we're going to be depleting our cash reserves, right? Paying people, paying bills. Our cash reserves are going to continue to go down. As they continue to go down, it will be very important for you to know what you have, right? What you have. Now, even today, if you can't get inventory and you're in an area that is still allowed, does not have the shelter in place, you can sell. So you can go out with the limited offerings of what you have and conserve if you know the inventory you have, the amount that you have, you can conserve cash flow and B, you can sell the products that you have on the shelf if you know what you have, instead of, well, let me go check. We had a few dealers place orders today, and they were like, well, I got to go to my storage, because these are flat glass dealers and they don't really have a big office or something. They've got a small office and a storage and stuff. They said, I got to go back, check my storage. So it cost them time and money to go back, check their storage, to check their inventory, to order it. If you have it out there, and let's say the blend, you don't have all the dual reflective Veloce blends. You don't have the 5, 20, 27, and 35. You only have the 27 and 20, let's say. So guess what? You don't show the sample cards of the blend 5 and 35. You only show the 2, and you say, look, we're running on limited inventory because suppliers are restricted and so forth. So that's one thing. The second thing is cash flow. Guys, we all know that in small business, one of the most important things is cash flow. So I don't even want you to look at the inventory and think about inventory. I want you to think about one of the most important things in your business, which is cash flow. If you have it and you can say, hey, I can use this and I can use that, and maybe, you go to a house and you say, I have 2 partial rolls, one here and one over there. So, it's very easy to be able to say, okay, I'm going to, on the second floor, I'm going to do this, and on the ground floor, I'm going to do that.
So I'm going to jump into a couple of comments real quick just to address some comments. So Lance Colors from Las Vegas said we need a cut sheet ASAP, and then skipping ahead to another one of his comments, he said inventory goes hand in hand with a cut sheet. How many linear feet, how many rolls, what size rolls, etc. So, okay, at the moment, the inventory we deployed does not have a cut sheet tied in, but the cut sheet is something we've already developed, and it was a very it was a part we spent a lot of time on, because cut sheets are incredibly tricky to have so many different possible variations to ensuring that you account for everything and that you do it in the most efficient way possible. But we definitely nailed it, and it's like part 2 of our launch of the inventory system. So it's coming, it's done, and I agree, it's definitely a big part of it. Mars Kaz said demo this now as far as the inventory said, so we can see it. So Mars, I'm not set up to pull up Tint Wiz at the moment on this screen. That's kind of why I said, if you can pull it up in front of you and we can go through things, any questions or anything like that, like it'll make sense. But here's what I challenge you, and I challenge everybody here. While you may want to be shown how to use it, I will bet you that if you go to the inventory right now, you're going to figure out 100% on your own. I can guarantee that. Now, I know you might be thinking that I'm just saying it. I'm not just saying that. It is so easy. We spent so much time making this a colorful, big buttoned, easy to follow step-by-step process of adding inventory and assigning inventory and so on, that I guarantee you, and if I'm wrong, I want you to come back into this chat and I want you to give me hell. So give it a shot, whether you do it now or you do it after. It's so easy. And then Lance,
so break it down. Break it down a little bit, because here's the deal. Again, it's easy. You are a tech nerd, man.
No, it's easy for everybody. That's what I'm saying. Okay. Right. That's what I'm saying. It's not easy. Just go ahead.
Give me a couple of. I'm behind in technology. So give me a couple of steps. Okay, you don't have to. I'm going to picture it in my head.
I'm going to
log on. Take me through a couple of steps. Make it easy for me to where, I'm not thinking easy for Eric Divash, the king of disco, versus, Harry Rahman.
What? All right, hang on. Let me see if I can pull it up on. I don't want it to be so janky where I'm showing it on my phone.
No, I don't want you to show it on your phone.
Okay, because I just feel like that's going to be a blurry mess.
Give me 2 or 3 things that.
So
what do I do next?
You're just going to the inventory system and you're adding your first roll of film. All the films are preloaded in there, so you're just searching for whatever type of film it is, and you're putting in the size, you're putting in the width and the length of the film. Super, super easy. And I caught a comment that I'm just curious about.
Yeah.
Let's see. Corey said, so a knockoff of Tint Pros. I'm not sure what you mean by a knockoff of Tint Pros. I I just don't know what you mean by that. So if you could explain. Now, I can assure you that we didn't knock anybody's inventory system off. One of the ways we've developed this entire app was we look at what the best practice is, how we imagine it, and how it works in throughout a tint business. And we do that step by step. So we look at what is going to have the best result, what is going to be the most effective, and we draw that map and create that. We don't base it off things that are already existing because there's nothing existing in the window film CRM inventory project management that's worth copying. I don't mean to, it is what it is. And if you compare anything that exists out there with Tint Wiz, I can confidently see you'll see the difference as well. So Lance also said not a Tint Pro knockoff. If you meant Tint Pro, it's definitely not a Tint Pro knockoff. This is an application. So this is something that connects everywhere. This is something that you can use on your iPhone, in the App Store, on your iPad, on your computer. This is not only a CRM, but this is a system that actually takes you from lead to invoice following the best practices. So it's kind of something that I touched on previously, which is, there's a lot of CRMs out there. There's a lot of places you can schedule yourself. There's a lot of places you can store pictures, and there's a lot of invoicing apps. But bringing it all together in a way that makes sense, one to the second, to the third, to the fourth, all the way from lead coming in to contacting the lead, to keeping up to date and following, to sending out a quote or going out to the project, to installation, to invoicing, and to having all those records all in one easy, fast, efficient system, and then being able to go back to those and reference them. That's what we created with Tint Wiz, and that's why it works so well. So
I want to touch on one thing before you touch on the next comment, is that, look, what I've seen, one of the things that I've seen you do over time is you have not built this to perfection, which is impossible. You're continuing to improve this system. And I'm sure that if there is a better way of doing something, you'll figure it out. You're competing with yourself. So look, it's easy to say, a knockoff of this or a knockoff that. What I would like to hear is tell us one thing that you prefer on another program that Tint Wiz does not have. And then let's work towards, we'll tell Eric, hey, do this better. And let's work on that instead of saying knockoff X or Y.
Yeah, I mean, if there's something, of course, like we get so much feedback. So one of the features of Tint Wiz is the support area. And I kind of want to just give me like a little pause, and then I'll finish that sentence. Lance asked if we're going to talk about QuickBook invoicing because it was something he brought up at the beginning of the stream. I'm going to finish this thought, and then we're going to talk about QuickBook invoicing real quick because it's quick, because it's easy. And but on the support subject, so I think typically we don't look at support as necessarily a feature of something. It's just there when you need it. But Tint Wiz's support is something different. So Tint Wiz has a support tab in the menu, and it has a live chat option. Now this is a live chat where you're either talking to me or one of our team. We know the window film industry. We know the app intimately. You're not talking to a message center or whatever it is. You're talking to us, and we're there to answer any questions you have, whether it be 11 p.m. at night or 6 a.m. in the morning. We do have users now in Australia, in the UK, Canada, and so on. But the reason I bring up Australia and UK is the time zone difference, especially Australia. So that has us sharing shifts of this live chat. So somebody's almost 24 hours a day monitoring the live chat and able to get back to you quickly with an answer. So that support is a feature in itself. And, regardless of where you're at, if you have a question, that's the place to go into. Ask the question, you're going to get an answer. If you have suggestions, if you notice, we have all the films preloaded in there, but if you notice a film that's not in there, we'll get it added same day. It's definitely we appreciate all the questions, because questions and suggestions just work for everybody. That's what this is all about anyway. That's that. Let me jump into QuickBooks, and then I'll turn it back over to you, Harry. Lance is asking about QuickBooks. So Tint Wiz integrates with QuickBooks. You go to settings, you go to integrations, and then you'll see QuickBooks right there. Now, a key thing to note at the beginning, it integrates with QuickBooks Online, which is their cloud-based QuickBooks. It does not integrate with their desktop version, which is their kind of the legacy version, desktop version that lives on your computer. Now, that's not just the case with Tint Wiz, that's the case with any app, because the way apps talk to each other is through what's called an API, and it's just kind of a direct communication. And a version that lives on your desktop cannot connect that way, whereas a cloud versions, that's how apps connect. So much like Facebook, much like any app you're using, you need your QuickBooks to be online, you need your Tint Wiz to be online, and once you're using QuickBooks Online, connecting them is as easy as clicking that integrations button. It's going to ask you to log in as. It's something you're familiar with. You do it sometimes with Facebook or Google, logging in as. And you're going to enter your login information, and then that's going to connect. It's a one-time thing. You connect QuickBooks to your Tint Wiz. Then what that's going to allow you to do is everything syncs up. So what happens then is when you create a new customer in Tint Wiz, when you go ahead and you go to the invoice area and you create a new invoice, it's going to actually sync all that information with QuickBooks and create that invoice through QuickBooks and send it out to the customer. Let me just check, make sure we don't have any. So it's going to send it out to the customer through your QuickBooks. When that customer pays that invoice, it's going to update your QuickBooks, and that automatically updates your Tint Wiz. If your customer hands you cash, you go into your Tint Wiz, you enter in your payment by invoice, it automatically updates QuickBooks. So what it basically means is you're able to run all your invoicing and sync all your information for QuickBooks without ever actually going into QuickBooks. You can then do everything from Tint Wiz. Creating an invoice takes a couple clicks because Tint Wiz already knows your project. It knows the amount of the project. So, you just literally on Tint Wiz, you're create an invoice. It's populating that information. You can add any notes or make any adjustments. You select your tax, and you can go ahead and send that invoice out, and customers can then pay online. And like I said, when they pay online, they pay through that invoice. It's going to automatically update Tint Wiz, and you get an app notification. And then if they pay you in person, you update it in Tint Wiz, and it's going to automatically update your QuickBooks. So Lance asked, so I did have QuickBooks Online, but nothing has synced to QuickBooks. So if you're having any issues, just jump into the support area of Tint Wiz, and we're going to be able to walk you through it, because sometimes things like this, they do require screenshots to kind of narrow down any sort of troubleshooting that may exist or any reasons why it's not syncing. So that's why the live support is just super fast and most effective in getting it. So Lance also asked, so send the invoice through Tint Wiz. That's exactly right. So you're going to send it out through Tint Wiz. That's going to create it in QuickBooks and send it out, but you're doing it in Tint Wiz, and then from there everything syncs back and forth. But you do have to start the process in Tint Wiz. You never really need to go into QuickBooks again other than for accounting.
So Eric, I want to touch on another feature that I really like. One of my dealers was telling me about, and that one was that they can tell when a customer has actually opened the bid. So that's got to be one of my favorite ones. It's so simple, but what it allows, so basically what I'm talking about is that, there are times you give a customer a bid and you want to call them back, but you're not sure if they've opened the bid or not opened the bid, had a chance to look at it or not. So Tint Wiz will tell you, okay, well, this was, what exactly does it say?
So when you send out that proposal, you're able to, it timestamps when that proposal was sent. So first and foremost, when that proposal was sent, whether you sent it and you're looking back or somebody else sent it in your company, you can see when it was sent. Then it's going to show you a status. So it shows you the status that it was sent. Now, if somebody, like you said, if the customer clicks it and views their proposal, that status on your Tint Wiz profile for the customer is going to change to viewed. So what that does is give you two options. Number one, you're able to see that the customer viewed the proposal, which allows you to then follow up with the customer. Okay. On the flip side of that, you're able to see when a customer doesn't view their proposal, because if a couple days have passed or whatever time frame you're comfortable with, and you notice that a customer hasn't viewed their proposal, you definitely then can follow up and say, hey, I noticed you haven't viewed the proposal yet. I want to make sure you saw it, and if you had any questions, I can answer them. And they may say, oh, I thought you didn't send it. And you say, well, maybe you just missed it or whatnot. I can resend it to you right now. That only takes a click. Whatever it is, you can get them to view the proposal because you know who's viewed it and who didn't.
Yeah, but the call that you make is very different versus not knowing. So if I send a proposal to Eric and I want to call him back in 48 hours, and if I don't know whether he's opened that bid or not, I'm saying, should I or shouldn't I? If I know that he's open, if I know he hasn't opened the bid, I could say, hey, Eric, just wanted to make sure you got the bid. We were our systems sometimes, they are systems, and sometimes something can go wrong. Did you get it? Well, no, I haven't gotten it. All right, I got it. You already know the answer to that question. Or sometimes if they've viewed it, you don't even have to say that they got it. You can just say, hey, Eric, just calling to make sure that you got the you got the message. So basically you can customize the call that you make rather than just being the blind. If you call them up and say, hey man, I haven't heard from you in 48 hours, they're like, well, I haven't received it, right? And if they haven't viewed it, so it's just a better way of calling them back.
And
And the
then
other thing is, if you make a change, real quick, if you make a change and they say, well, we don't want to do the upstairs, right? And we just want to do the downstairs. Well, you can say, oh, no problem. I'll make the change and I'll send it to you. And you can also see when they saw that or not.
Right, so it's a live proposal, which means, just as Harry sent it, if the customer hasn't viewed the proposal yet, or even if they have, if you make changes to that proposal, if you add any solutions, options, or you edit anything, they're going to see that live. So you're able to adjust that proposal if they want to see something different or want to see a different film option or so on. It takes a few clicks. Again, if you take everything we've discussed, not only is it a best practice to convert your customer, but it's going to save you time and make your life easier. And the more time you save in life, the better. If you save it doing tasks that you don't need to do. Real quick, Lance also said it would be awesome to add Joist integration. Joist allows deposits. I don't think QuickBook does. So one of the features that we're adding, literally like really, really right around the corner, is integration to Zapier. And Zapier integration is going to do is Zapier is like a bridge app. So we're going to integrate Zapier to Tint Wiz, and then Zapier integrates with everything, literally everything. Every app out there, pretty much Zapier integrates. So like Joist, WePay, and so on, anything, MailChimp. So what that's going to allow you to do is you can connect your Tint Wiz to Zapier, and then you can connect Zapier to absolutely anything else. And that's going to open up the integrations wide open. That's right around the corner. And then one other thing I'd like to throw out there, Harry, I don't know if you've seen it yet because it was just deployed today, but we just deployed the tagging feature, which allows you to tag a contact that's in your Tint Wiz. So you can tag an existing contact, or you can tag them when you're entering their information. But what you can do is you can add a tag, and that tag can be anything you want. So you might tag where you got the lead source. So you might tag them as a Yelp, or as a referral, or as a Google ad lead, or whatever it is. You're going to tag them, and you can tag them also as a contractor or as an interior designer or whatnot. And then what that's going to allow you to do is you can get creative as you want in organizing and tagging your customers, and then you can go back and search and group those customers. So think about what you could do here is you could go back and export all the interior designers, let's say, and send out an email to them specific to interior designers or to contractors, or if you want to see which one of your lead sources are being more effective than another. Like the tagging is one of those simple to use things that is just a game changer, and there's no limits to how effective you can use tagging. So you'll see it at the bottom of the lead form.
I want to touch on this feature. This is a great feature, and again, and I want to shift a little bit from the small business to the mid-sized business as well. But before we do that, I want to touch on this feature. How many times have you heard dealers say, how many times have I heard dealers say, hey, look, we've got this designer, she sends us one lead about every 3, 4, 5, 6 months. Okay. So, all right. So now that you're tagging that designer, what you can see is at the end of the year, you have 6 designers, and you can go back to them and see how many, and you can ask them, hey, basically you now have a report that was in your head that was difficult to pull out. You can now pull that report out and say, how many leads, how many jobs am I getting? So now you can call up the designer and say, hey, look, it seems like we get a call from you every 3 to 4 months. Is there anything we can do to increase that? Is it our service? Do you want sample cards? Do you want a BTU meter? What can we do so again, if a tree falls in the forest, did it really fall or did it make a sound? So the question really is that if it's in front of you, if you keep these reports in front of you and you're tagging let's just say the lead source, then you are now able to pull that report up, and it tells you what to do rather than you having to come up with, oh my God, that glass company hasn't sent us a lead in a while. I need to, it's all dependent on your memory and stuff. So, yep. Eric, I want to shift a little bit to, we've spoken a little bit about the smaller dealers, right? So the reason we started off with the smaller dealers is because they're the ones that say, it's all in my head. I don't necessarily need it. Now I want to shift to, just the mid, the 3, 4, 5, 6 employees, all the way up to 10, 15 employee type company. you know, obviously their rate of return is even bigger. But let's talk about your company that you sold, the Durex company, and if you started to take on Tint Wiz when you were doing uh, 400,000 in business as opposed to starting a new business, what would your motivation be if you were a mid to larger size company instead of just the smaller one?
I mean, the amount of, there's just this bottleneck that you'll see in companies that grow beyond the one man band. And the bottleneck happens at different points, but there's just this communication barrier. And like, you lose track of who's doing what and the quality of their doing. Oftentimes, the person answering the phone, the first contact with the customer, is where most of the business is being lost. And because there's kind of this lack of system in place, there's no way to quantify that or to improve that. And as a business owner, you're saying, well, we need to offer a deal, we need to offer more services, we need to raise our prices, we need to lower our prices. You're doing all these things to try and improve your business, but really where it starts is the customer contacting you and you responding to the customer and how that interaction goes. So like, that's just I feel like any big company, because you're probably getting a significant amount of leads in, is that's just a huge benefit to have that all in one place. That another thing that is huge is when somebody works for your company, like they want to do things efficiently too. They don't want to do tedious things. They don't want to do repetitive things. You don't want them to do tedious and repetitive things. You want them to be efficient. And when you're using systems like this, things become easier. Communications become easier. So let me give you an example. If I'm answering the phone, or if you have somebody answering the phone, let's say, right, and then they're passing along a message to another team member to do something, to call a customer back or so on, okay? With Tint Wiz, what you do is you put a note in the customer, you go to the project you're talking about, okay, you put a note in there, and you assign that note to another team member. So you could say, call this customer back. They had a question, they called, they don't understand the difference between the two films, and they need it explained to them. Or whatever it is, maybe the film has bubbles and they want you to come and look at them. Let's take that as a scenario. It's a little more serious of a scenario. And now what happens is, if you're telling that person, well, maybe you're shooting a text message to them and maybe they're on the road and then maybe they forgot, or maybe, who knows. The flip side to that, maybe they called them and left a voicemail. Who knows what happened? But what happens next is that customer calls back. And that same person answers the phone, and the customer might be upset and said, hey, I haven't got a call back, and so on, right? And that person's clueless. All they can say is, I'm sorry, I will contact them. They're going to now be upset with their team member and go, why didn't you call this customer? I'm taking the heat, and you didn't get. And now here's the thing with Tint Wiz, you're going to put the note in there, you're going to assign it to the other person. You can see when that person viewed it, and they can leave a response, and you're notified when they respond. So they can say, hey, called customer, left them a voicemail, also sent them an email. So when that customer calls you back and says, what happened? You can say, oh, I see so-and-so called you at this time. They should have left you a voicemail, and then they also sent you an email, but I can try and connect you now. It's a different scenario. You're able to share information and get things done and follow up with customers instead of having a notebook and scribbling down, hey, I'm driving right now, let me call you back, and like all these different kind of hecticness that can cause inefficiencies. And those things, I feel like they definitely happen to the one-man band, but they're super unavoidable once you have more hands in the pot. So everybody.
I want to touch on that. Yeah, I want to touch on that because, think about, when I ask small businesses, especially the ones that 1 and 2 man shows, the smaller businesses, the 1 and 2 person companies, when I ask them, what prevents you from expanding? One of the most common answers is, well, they're just not, my employees are not going to work the way I do, right? They're just not going to take care of the customer. They're not going to follow up with the customer. Well, what Eric just described is you keeping track of that. So also remember that every lead for a company that's got 8 employees as opposed to 2, every lead is that much more important because that's the amount of overhead that you have. So the follow-up on that lead, whether it comes in from the website directly in or the fact that the employee that was supposed to follow up follows up on time. Remember, things can happen. Things can happen that we don't really think about. Like maybe that employee is not feeling well, and wasn't able to get it off. Regardless, it could be intentional, it could be unintentional, but the fact that you have you have your finger on the pulse of that, and on the reports, you can see, hey, look, they didn't follow up. Let me check up why they didn't. Okay, the person's not feeling well. No problem. I'll take care of it. But one way or the other, intentional or unintentional, you have your finger on the pulse. And so the same thing that prevents small businesses from expanding beyond them, the onesies and twosies, to getting up there, that's why it's that much important, because your overhead is that much higher. I've got a dealer right now that has about 8 employees or so. And Eric, one of the problems that they're facing is they're growing and they're doing well, but one of the problems is that the left hand is not really communicating well with the right hand. So if there are projects on there, then they all don't know what's going on. The films that need to be ordered, the distances that need to be, they're not factoring those things in. And what's happening is, this particular dealer has some amazing employees. I mean, their team is just really, really good. But guess what's happening is that even they are getting frustrated because they don't know come Friday or Monday, whenever their meetings are, on what to expect for the week. So if you have these things in place in the systems, and you know that these are the projects, they can look at them. And by the way, can you touch on the different levels of access, so that if I have an installer versus a salesperson versus a sales manager versus me, the owner, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's, when you add a team member, basically what you do is you put in their email address and their name, and you invite them to use Tint Wiz. Then they're going to get an email, they sign up. But when you're doing that, you can pick what they're going to be as far as the team. Do you want them to be an admin? Do you want them to be an installer? Do you want them to be a consultant? And that's going to limit some of, some of what they can do based on, some of the permissions per se throughout there. So that they can do their job effectively, but it's not about hiding things like hiding price or anything like that, because you have an installer out at a job, you want them to know the price of the job. They're collecting payment from the customer and so on. Those are best practices that we insist on being in place because they're best practices. But as far as certain changes to your company account and so on, there's no reason why your installer should have access to your QuickBooks integration. There's just none, unless you want them to, and then you can make them an admin and give them higher privileges.
So the different levels. Sorry, go ahead.
Different levels. I just wanted to touch on a question Rick Tallman asking, and get your thoughts too, Harry. He said, why do you think employees don't do what the owner does? I want to throw my answer in real quick. I think a lot of times it's because they don't even know what the owner does. So a lot of times the owner's reacting to them not doing what they want done, as opposed to setting down guidelines of how things do get done. Because if you set how things do get done, I think a lot of great employees will do exactly what you say and maybe even do up and beyond. But if you expect them to kind of read your head and think ahead, what ends up happening is you might think it's common sense to you, but it's not common sense to a brand new person at a business. And then that leads to this super poor, it's not like a good relationship. It's not a way to learn. You don't want to learn by being told what you do wrong. You want to learn by, at least having a set of guidelines to do right by. What do you think, Harry?
So yeah, I think good question, Rick. Always, Rick Tallman is always thinking, man. So good question. I think that Eric touched on a good point. I think, look, in general, people are good. They want to please most people, and I always go with the assumption that when I meet somebody, that they are good until they prove me wrong. But I think there's one additional point. I think the issue becomes getting the right person. So Rick, what happens is sometimes we put people in places, and this is something that I think we need to do not just in business but in personal life as well. So I got married when I was about I think I was about 30, right? And I was at the point in life where I was I want to get married, but I made a list of the negotiables and the non-negotiables on what I was looking for in a woman. And that helped me identify the person that, so I think that before you actually go hire somebody, the first step you should do is you should write down the things that you want that position to do. Too often, what happens um, is that you find somebody and you're like, man, this seems like a good person. Man, they're so jolly, they can do the job. You try to get the person to fit the position instead of the position to fit the person. So that's the first most important thing I would do in life, is define that position. And what you'll realize is you'll meet some great people that don't fit the position, right? So the other thing is, sometimes what happens is we take good people and we put them in the wrong position and we make bad people out of them. So it's really, if your employee is not doing what you want them to do, and this is very critical, and it starts with me and end with you, is that you have to look in the mirror. You have to say, did I put them in the right place? And then the other thing is that, one of my mentors also said that too often, in terms, and I'll talk to this in terms of relationships, right? Too often we get married to somebody because of that feeling that they give us, right? That feeling of excitement. And the other times we get, whether it's marriage or a girlfriend or boyfriend, whatever is it's because of compatibility. We're like, we get along, right? So the answer is not just all of we get along or all of that feeling. It's a combination thereof. So I would say that, really look in the mirror. If you've got an employee not doing well, different people have different motivators. So even in our dealers' businesses, I see some people are motivated by that extra commission. Some people are motivated by, hey, you get to take Friday off. Some people are motivated by, hey, you get health insurance. So you have to. And what I would say is, personality profile tests really help you do this. In fact, Eric, I think I know Tint Wiz is continuing to evolve, and at some point, one of the services could be where you have something that can help dealers, hire the right people and take it, make it more than just a CRM and stuff. So, Rick, does that kind of answer your question?
He actually said, good point on the good person, wrong place analogy, Harry. And then he said, you get me excited, Harry. So it sounds like it answered. And then
Awesome.
Mar said, yes, amen. Not everybody's motivated by money. Take a trait test.
Yeah. So, these tests, I'll tell you, don't be fooled by them, because it's not the test itself. You need somebody to interpret it. You and I cannot interpret. What happens is somebody may score very high on A and on trait A, on trait B low. It's a combination thereof that really makes that person a fit. It's not a high or a low, but that combination thereof. So I was very fortunate, and I'm very fortunate that I have a consultant as well that helps me do that. And Eric, I've hired over 500 people in my life, and probably fired over 250 back when I was in the franchise world, and so I managing franchises, and I thought I had it down. I really thought that that number of people, I thought I had it down. And when I saw how professionals do hiring and these tests and the interpretation, I realized that I really didn't know much.
Yeah.
And these are very inexpensive services. Don't think that they cost, if you're hiring somebody and it'll cost you $150, $200 to do a test. Start first of all with you defining what you want that person to do today and what you want them to do, not just today, but tomorrow and day after tomorrow, and then get the test done to see if it fits it.
And just want to throw this out there, just to be to try to be a little extra self-aware when it comes to this hiring process. If you hire somebody and they suck and it just works out terribly, if you try to use that as a reason to not hire anybody else, you suck. So you have to realize that it does take trial and error. You're never going to be done learning how to hire people. It could have been their fault. It could have been your fault. It could have been anybody's fault. It doesn't matter. But the point is, you have to keep trying. So you have to evaluate, where did I find that person? Should I look elsewhere? Should I keep looking there? What didn't work out about them, and how could I have seen that during the hiring process up front? Sometimes you're not going to be able to. Sometimes people are good tricksters, but don't let one or two bad experiences stop you, because you need to get there. Like, if you're trying to, at least you need to get there. Go ahead.
And I want to use something I use with my son probably more than anybody else, is as you try to do this, change the input to change the output. Don't keep doing the same thing over and over again. If you're hiring from Craigslist and you keep getting the same type of person, then move elsewhere. Move to Indeed. Indeed has a really nice platform on putting out ads and how they charge you and stuff. So change the input to change the output.
Real quick, and then I'll turn it back over to you. Is there anything that possibly could be using your internet? Because your connection kind of just went blurry the last couple of minutes.
It's probably not the internet connection. It's just, the lack of coffee, buddy. No, I'm just kidding. No, I don't think so.
Okay, just checking.
But I want to touch on Eric. What do you see? And if you're not at liberty to talk about it, that's fine. But what's your vision for Tint Wiz? Not just today, because I look at you and I look at you as a visionary. You created this system for yourself. You kept on improving on it. Every month you're coming out with new things. But what if I'm going to fast forward 5 years from now or 3 years from now, whatever you feel comfortable in? What can I look at Tint Wiz for as a window tint retailer?
So, ultimately the best way to put it, because I feel like Gary Vee says something about the clouds and the dirt. And the dirt's basically where you operate, like right now, real world, like got to get it done stuff. And then you have the clouds, which is, the big pictures and stuff. So we could go all the way up into the clouds, and we'll be together for days discussing that. So I'll get somewhere in between the clouds and the dirt.
My clouds are made of dirt, I think.
Or what? Say again?
My clouds are made of dirt.
Or dirt? Well, your world must be upside down.
I'm living in the clouds. Yeah.
I gotcha. So basically, to put it in the best way possible, we imagine a ongoing system of best practices, an ecosystem that a tinter can be a part of, and they're going to be able to use a multitude of services to, better their business, to systematize their business, to get value out of the business. So, Tint Wiz, what we launched and, first kind of quietly launched about 1.5 years ago to today, has evolved significantly. We're constantly adding features and we're constantly developing it. So, with that said, the price, we didn't talk about price, but it's an important part of that vision is, it's $100 a month typically. Now, as we said at the beginning of this live stream, it's completely open up for free for everybody until June 15th, which was like a 90-day free period, and we'll keep evaluating that. But let's say we get past that, economy's rocking. What does Tint Wiz cost?
Hold that thought.
Go ahead.
I want to just add, it's $100 per company, unlimited user. So you know how there's several programs that they charge you per user. This
right.
Is unlimited. Am I correct?
That's it. So
if I have 13 employees,
$100 a month. If you have 1 million customers, $100 a month. If you have 1 million employees, still $100 a month. And if you have if you have just yourself, it's $100 a month. So it's $100 a month. And the thing is, we just added the inventory system. We're not doing this thing where we're like, hey, now you're going to pay for this and then you're going to pay for that. We built an efficient software. We're going to continue to build it out, and it's going to continue to only cost $100 a month per business. So as your business grows, still $100 a month. And that's something that you don't see anywhere. And it's important to us because we really want to, we practice what we preach. We built an efficient software. We're going to run an efficient company, and that's going to that's going to also flow down to everybody as a user. You're going to get a lot for your money, a lot. We want to beyond over deliver, and we want to continue to add features in there, but not add costs in there. So that's it. So to answer your question, go ahead.
No, you didn't answer, man. That was like saying, Doc, what should I eat to lose weight, and the doc's like, just eat healthy. Now you got to give me a little bit more, man. I mean, I get it. It's an ecosystem. I mean, you're using some big words, man, for a little guy right here. So you throw me a bone on, okay, we're sitting here 3 years from now. Throw me a little bit of bone on, what are we looking at? Go into detail a little bit. What do you see? Tell me about the clouds, man.
I mean, I see Tint Wiz being a place that, as a tint company, that should be the place that you live. That should be your dashboard. That should be your central location. From your phone, from your computer, from your iPad, from wherever you're at, you're able to, manage all aspects of your business. As far as like features go and so on, there's, endless convenience features and marketing features that we have launching this year that are going to kind of change the landscaping and kind of give tint companies tools to bring in leads for their company so effortlessly. And like right now, like we have what we look at, and I've never mentioned this publicly, but since you asked and since we're here, let's do it. Like we have a game-changing solution for like online presence. Like it's just like it's going to be one of those things where there's no reason to not be a part of it. And if you're not even using Tint Wiz, but you're using this, it's still that game-changing. And like I said, this is still part of that $100 ecosystem. So
what about payroll? Can I do someday? You see us doing payroll through through Tint Wiz?
So currently, you can do a lot of payroll functions straight through the analytics. So you can measure people's like square footage they completed. So if you're a shop that's paying people based on square footage, you're able to do that. You're able to see the gross amount of work they do. You're able to see basically any of the analytics you probably need to see to do payroll. But as far as an actual in their payroll solution, I'm sure there'll be something. I'm sure there'll be something soon in Tint Wiz, but in between now and then, because as far as development, there's endless things. We have to put them in the order that we think is going to be the most valuable to our users and have the best impact for them. So something like payroll, when we have Zapier integrated with Tint Wiz, Zapier being that bridge app, you'll be able to integrate any sort of like external payroll app that's out there directly with Tint Wiz. They'll communicate, and that solves that. As well as there's, I believe, payroll systems built into QuickBooks Online. So if you're using QuickBooks Online, then I would just say you want to use as few different systems as possible. Sometimes it's gonna help to have complementary programs, but I would say if you're already using QuickBooks Online, I would try to steer towards their payroll solutions than adding a completely separate third-party payroll solutions. But you'll be able to do that too.
And now you gave me what I was looking for, man. Now I'm content that I'm seeing the clouds. That's awesome. Well, Eric, it's been any other questions on the board?
So we had a lot of comments. Any of the questions I tried to interrupt with and get those in there. Rick Tallman just said, "Don't be shy, Eric. You're saying you want to be the Miggy Mag Daddy of this in 5 years." This is the most fun thing and most fulfilling thing I've ever done in my life. I love these live streams. I love that Tint Wiz, before I was feeling like I was affecting my crew of people, which was maybe 15, 20 people. And now I can feel like, hey, we can do things and affect hundreds of people, thousands of people, and so on, customers. Like, it's just such a bigger impact that it's rewarding. And, I love being in the position of the opportunity. I'm here to help however possible. So whether it's a Tint Wiz question or a question, whether you message me or you go into the support, like, we're here to help. And, I appreciate you taking the opportunity to ask these questions and pull some of this information out of me.
Awesome. Well, guys, to all the viewers, thank you. Again, Eric he does so much for other companies, and he does, even with his generous offer till June 15th of the free use of Tint Wiz. I mean, he adds a lot, and he puts his money where his mouth is. So I wanted to, just take some time to talk about the benefits. And, we have several Veloce dealers across the country that use Tint Wiz, and they're looking out, a couple of them are trying out the inventory app. So I'll give you some feedback as soon as I get some. So, guys, thank you again. And Eric, I'll let you close it off.
Cool. Well, thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll be back next Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Or no, today is Tuesday, so we'll be back Thursday, which is the day after tomorrow. And we'll see you then. In the meantime, check out that inventory system. Whether you're, check out the inventory system, try out adding a contact and creating a project, scheduling a person. Just do it with test information, and you're going to see how easy it is. It's super easy. That's an important part of using it, and I put my money where my mouth is. If it's not, come harass me in the comments or in the support, and I'd love to hear any feedback.
One last thing.
Shoot.
One last thing. So why don't you, maybe put together a webinar, as one of your Tint Wisdoms, put together a webinar and have it on screen, and take each one of these 5 things, the uploads and this, and just walk everybody through it. I think that fear and that question mark of the unknown of what we're going to go through, you may connect a lot of the dots.
Sure. So, and definitely, and that's definitely the plans, and we do them from time to time. So if you jump back to our YouTube page, it's Tint Wiz on YouTube. You're going to find a ton of videos. Some that don't have a guest, and it was just me explaining with Tint Wiz Live. We also did a how to schedule an automotive appointment in there, and it's just a quick 1-minute video. It shows you in 50 seconds, if you're going slowly, how you can schedule somebody. That includes their automatic text message and email confirmation. And absolutely, in the future, we will do more Tint Wizes with Tint Wiz on screen.
Can you put in the notes after we're done here? Can you just add maybe some links to those and just even connect those dots? Because instead of going and looking for it, they're right there, and you can say, okay, inventory here, adding a contact here, and just a couple of notes so that people can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll drop those links in the comments right after we disconnect. And, thank you for everybody for watching. Thank you, Harry, for doing this. Appreciate you doing this. Today's live stream earlier today. If anybody missed the town hall, it was my favorite live stream to date. It was a group of, just high level, definitely leaders in this industry, people that I haven't had a chance to speak to before. And if you watch it, you'll notice I basically don't talk the entire time, and that's because all I wanted to do was listen. I want to hear what everybody had to say. Because it was really, really, really interesting, and I appreciate those guys coming in and sharing what they're working on and what they're planning and how they're dealing through this crisis. So check that one out as well.
Perfect. Thanks, Eric.
All right, have a great evening, everyone. We'll see you on Thursday.